Hello everyone, welcome to Curious Dude, and today we'll be starting something new. In this, we'll be learning C Sharp, whereas we'll be starting from right from the basics to the expert. So we'll we'll assume that a person who is watching this has never had a coding experience, and we'll start with something right from the basics, and we'll cover all the topics in Visuals, that is C Sharp. So for this, we have to download Visual Studio. Any community edition is sufficient for this. So I have already downloaded and installed Visual Studio in my laptop. So I'll directly open Visual Studio. To create a new project, what we have to do is you have to click on Create New Project first. It will ask me what type of project do I want to create. So Visual Studio in Visual Studio you can when you are developing a C Sharp project, you can actually using C Sharp you can develop mobile applications, Windows applications, or you can develop web applications. There are multiple things that you can actually do with C Sharp. So you can actually create games as well. So let's start with console application for this one, where we'll be learning all our basics. I'll click on console app and I'll say continue. So here I would name my first project name. So I can name anything whatever I wish for. So I would be naming this as basics. So we will be naming this as basics for beginners, and the solution name we'll just keep it same as that, and I'll say click on create. So once I click on create, it will create a project for me with a basic template. And it just created a basic template for me. This is how the Visual Studio looks like, in which we will be developing all the code in C Sharp. And to explain, to give a brief overview on Visual Studio, right hand side corner what we see here is called as Solution Explorer. So this particular window contains the main project name, and the sub files contains within this project. Properties tab we'll be using for whenever we are dealing with web page or a web application, mobile application, or Windows application. We'll be using this particular window here. Toolbox we'll be using when we are actually dealing with web application or mobile application or Windows application. On the tool bar, what we see here, we have all the functionalities which we'll be exploring while we are going through the session. First topic that we will be covering in C Sharp is syntax. So what are syntax? Syntax are nothing but a set of rule or a guidance that a developer who developed C Sharp has given to the code, saying that, hey, you let's say that I am actually trying to get an output or writing something. So this is what you have to call. This is what you have to write, and this is how you have to write. So they have given set of rules or guidance which is called as syntax. So now the very first line which says using system. So what is using system? It does nothing but it is saying use the library function called as systems, or use the class which is called as system to, and that will help us to use all these functionalities, that is console write line. If you want to use this particular this particular code, this is the library function that you would like to add first. So here it says namespace basics for beginners. So what is a namespace? Namespace is nothing but a set of project in which it contains multiple classes. Here we see only one class. It can also contain multiple classes within it, and these classes contain a functions, multiple methods or functions It now we are seeing only one method and one function where we can add multiple functions as well. So this is a main function. Within main function, whatever we write, whatever piece of code we write, that gets executed. So right now, by default, whenever we launch the first project, it will give us hello world code. So I'll just build this code first. That when I say build, that's nothing but I'm debugging the code. I'm checking for any errors or something. So it has successfully debugged. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly click on this green button. So once I click on this, that means it runs my project and it opens a console window with an output. Now we see here it opens a console window for us and it has typed hello world. So hello world is the output that we got. It's because of the line what we have written here. In what the by default what it has come console write line. It writes hello world. Now, there are a few syntax for every command that we run, which we will be seeing in the series of tutorials. Next, I would like to concentrate on comments. How does a comments look like, and what is a comment? A comment is nothing but a piece of line which actually says that what this code, a description of the code, or what this code does, what this piece of line of code does. So let's say that is represented with two forward slashes, and I would say this line prints. And remember that this line does not get printed in the output box. So it is hidden from the output box. So if I run this and just show it to you, see we have hello world and this is commented out. This is just for a developer to understand a piece of line of code. So this is single line comment and there is something called as multi-line comment as well. How do we define a multi-line comment? So to do that, one forward slash with a star and anything I type is a comment. So to end this, I would write a star and again a forward slash. And you can see this becomes a multi-line comment. So we have single line comment and we have multi-line comment. So this is a brief explanation on comments. So once after comments, we'll directly move to the next phase, something called as variables. So now we'll be learning something called as variables. What is variables? So variables are nothing but it's a, let's say, container which stores data. So any container which actually stores any kind of data is a variable. So there are multiple types of variables. Let's say that for an example, I say int a is equal to 10. Now, when I say int a is equal to 10, this a becomes my variable. 10 is a value, a data value, which is getting stored in A. So for me, or for the tool, A becomes a variable here, and int becomes a data type, which brings us to the next topic called as data types. So what are data types? Data types are nothing but we have multiple types of data types here. We have integer data type, we have float data type, and we have boolean data type, we have character data type, and we have string data type. To give an example, what are these data types and why there are so many data types? So before that, I'll just show the example, like a syntax for a data type. Data type syntax stands like this. A data type with variable name is equal to value. This is how a data type, a syntax is defined for a data type. So if you compare this with this, you can see a similarity here. Int goes here, a goes as a variable, 10 goes as a value, ended with a semicolon. Int a is equal to 10, which is a proper example for a data type. Now we have different types in data types, I told you, right? So those types are, we have something called as int, we have int, we have long, we have float, double, we have char. Character stands for character, char stands for character, we have string. Now let me just explain what each data type means. So when I say integer here, int here, this int has only integers within. So anything that starts with, I mean, any integer, 1, 10, 20, 100, 3000, 4000, all the integers fall under integer int category. So this long and integer are exactly the same. Actually, both stores integers, both has integer values, but the only difference is uh, integer has size of 4 bytes, nothing but an integer can store a value up to 2,147,483,648. From it can store both negative and the positive number. So it can store minus 2,147,483,648 to 2,447,048 till 7. So anything that is beyond this or below this becomes long because it is of 8 bytes. And the memory space allocated for long is huge, very huge. So that would almost come around, I don't know how to pronounce this, how to say, this much of data it can, this is the value that it can actually hold, minus this is comma here till a positive number till 7. It can hold a huge number. How much it is? Thousands, million, billion, trillion, 4 times billion, something. I don't know. So yeah, so it can hold a huge volume of data. So that is when we use long. When the value exceeds uh, this particular threshold, instead of int, we use long. Coming to the float section. Float is nothing but it holds decimal values. So integers and longs, they don't hold decimal values. So for decimal value, we use float, and same goes this as well. Float can withstand 4 bits, whereas double can withstand 8 bits. The size of double is 8 bits. 8 bits, bytes, anything, however you pronounce this. Moving on, we have character. So character is called as char. So it is the data type for character is char. So this holds a single alphabetic character, a single string. That's it. It can store a letter or a character which is surrounded by a single quote. So remember, whenever you're passing any character to the char variable, um, you can pass it with a single quote, not the double quote. So it contains only 2 bits or bytes, however you pronounce this. Next we have a string. String is nothing but it can store n number of characters. So string can be a character, but character cannot be a string. This is the logic. Now we have a string. We can pass a sentence. We can pass a paragraph. So for every character that you pass in a string contains 2 bytes. So you can pass n number of characters with the string and it accepts. So it would take 2 bytes for each character. Character. What happened to my spellings? Thing. How do we define these things? So int. I have already defined int as c. So c is equal to 10. I'll say. So now let's say e is equal to 1.9. But when you are defining a float, you can not leave just like 1.9. You have to say this is a float. How do you say that? You would mention f after that. So that is how you define a float. But for double, that's not the scenario. For double, you can just say 1.9 and it will consider that as a double. So this is how you define a double and a float. So for character, you pass a single string. I'll pass single string a. It's g is equal to, yeah. And for a string, you can pass a string in double quotes, and this is a string. And this is how you define a string variable. So we just saw how we define int, long, float, character, and a string. There is one more data type which we missed. There is something called as bool. Bool. So what is bool? Bool is nothing but a boolean character which accepts only 2 types of uh, values, that is true or false. So you can give it as m is equal to true or m is equal to false. Anything apart from that, let's say I pass 1, it does not accept, it throws me an error. So it goes for false. I can give a false. That's how Boolean works. So these are called as data types. Now we will quickly move to the next phase called as typecasting. What is typecasting? Typecasting happens in two ways. One is explicit typecasting and one is implicit typecasting. When I say implicit typecasting happens automatically, but whereas explicit typecasting happens manually. So a person has to intervene and do it. So how does it explicit and implicit typecasting works? So I just said implicit typecasting. Implicit typecasting is nothing but it is a automated version. So to give an example to this, anything that moves from smaller to bigger does happens automatically. So in the entire top, we can see that character is the smallest because it contains only 2 bytes. So from char to float, or float to long, sorry, from char to end, or end to long, or long to float, or float to double. Anything that happens in this format, from char to end to long to float to double, happens automatically. Let's say I want to do it in reverse format, or I want to go from double to float. That is explicit. That is where the system cannot do it on its own. We need to write an additional code or an additional condition for that to happen. So that is where the manual it has to be done manually. For that happens from bigger to smaller. So anything that you want to fit a bigger value to a smaller value, that is when you will be using explicit casting. This is how a implicit casting format goes, and this is how explicit casting format goes. Now, to give an example for implicit and explicit casting, I will I will just try to change an integer what we have defined here. So right now we have defined an integer called as 10. Now I have c is equal to 10. So let's say that we have double here. So let's say that I am sending int to double directly. This is from smaller to bigger. So to do that, now we have c is equal to 10. What was the value for double that we had given? That was f is equal to c. If I do that, nothing but I am sending c to f. If this is confusing, let's say end my end is equal to 15, double my dub is equal to my end. So I'm if you can notice that I'm actually passing an integer to double, and it did not throw any error. It automatically assigned it. So is nothing but auto. This is nothing but implicit casting. So if I write the output console dot write line, you have to pass your values in here. Let's say that I am passing my int, close it, and I am also printing double my double and close. So let's see what it actually prints. I'll just eliminate this hello world and I'll run this. Once I run this, it should actually print 1515 for me. As we can see, as expected, it printed 1515 for me. So this is called as implicit casting. Now we'll look into explicit casting. To do explicit casting, what we need to do is let's say that I am converting a double to an integer. Now I am reversing the parameter. So I have a double here, and I'm putting back to my end, and I'm replacing it. So let's say I say my dub is equal to 6.4, and this is a decimal factor. It contains a decimal factor. It's a double value, and I am trying to put it in okay, trying to put it in my int. Now let's say that I'm trying to put it in integer value. So here we have my int. So if I click, if I say my dub and close it, just like how we did here, it throws an error. It says local variable double my dub cannot implicitly convert the double into integer. An explicit conversion exists. So it is asking us to change this to an integer. So to do that, we would just call uh, int right before the double. So if we say this, now we eliminated that error. That means this has been successfully converted into an integer. Now let's say I try to get the output console.writeLine, and I print my int. I'll just comment out these. Let's see what output we get. And we got 6. Now you might ask me, why didn't we get 6.4? Because earlier I mentioned that integer values do not take any decimal factors. So that is the reason why we just got 6 rather than 6.4. It eliminated whatever it is there after point. So it just takes the positive or the negative number before decimal point, not after decimal point. So similarly, we can convert this to string, float, or anything by explicit casting. Now we will move on to the next parameter called as user inputs. Now we'll see how actually we can take user input and we can showcase that. So let's say To take an user input, so I'll just say my int is enter your name. This I'm asking a user to enter their name, and now once they enter the name, I should be able to read it. So to do that, I'll use a string variable where I can store name. I'll say console read line. This statement reads the user input, and once it reads, you can directly say console write line. You have entered. No, I can just say hello, welcome to my tutorial. Here I can call the name. So as you can see, I just said hello, name, whatever name that the user inputs. Welcome to my tutorial. So let's see if this works. Yes, there is a bug here. The bug is I did not close as expected a comma. Now it is asking for me to enter the name. I would say curious dude, and I'll say enter. Hello, curious dude. Curious dude, welcome to my tutorial. To give a space, I just give a space here, and it will give a space. Hello, curious dude, welcome to my tutorial. And that's how we take input from the user and we showcase to the use it as an output. So once after we take an input and once this is completed, we will now move on to the next basic part where we will learn about, let me just take all this out. Now we will learn about operators. The next topic in our class is operators. What are operators and how do we use these operators, functionalities of these operators, and all other things. So we have multiple arithmetic operators such as plus, minus, multiplication, division, modulus, increment, decrement. So we use all these operators in C#. So plus, minus, multiplication, division, modulus, increment, and decrement. So we'll just see how each of these operators play an important role. So I say int a is equal to 10 and int b is equal to 20. And if I say c int c is equal to a plus b, and if I console dot write line c, so it should directly add a plus b and it should give me 30. So that is what it should happen. So let's just see what would be the output for this. And we got 30. So similarly, we can use any operator in this. We can use minus sign, we can use division, modulus. We have minus 10. 10 minus 20 would give us minus 10. So we can explore this the entire day. We can see how the operators work, how it performs, and all the other things. We'll try some unique things in operators. So to try out a unique things in operators, let's see. Let me just define a is equal to 10. And now, if I say a plus is equal to 5, and if I say console dot write line a. So here what we are doing here is we are whatever value we have, we are adding 5 to it. This line also means a is equal to whatever value you have in a plus 5. This is what this line means. So instead of typing this entire text, we are just saying this. So let's just see what would be the output. It should be a 15, and as expected it is 15. So if I do the same thing for minus, it works exactly same way. Exactly, we can use multiplication as well, or division, or modulus. Multiplication has become 50. Now let's see what happens if I use ampersand. Here it is called as ampersand. When I do this, it returns me 0. So we can experiment this all day. We will just directly move on to the next phase called as comparison. So let's say that you are comparing two different numbers. To compare two different numbers, we have a operator called is equal to is equal to. So we just mention 2 times equal to, and that would become the variable for comparing. So let's say this is for comparing two numbers. And next we have not equal to. In this we check if the number is equal or not. In this we check if the number is not equal. In this we check if the number is greater than. This is for lesser than. Similarly, we have greater than or equal to, and goes first, lesser than or equal. So these are the symbols that we have, and these are the operating functions. So we just completed our operation functions here, and we will now move on to the next phase, that is mathematics. What are mathematical functions? What is mathematical functions in C sharp and all other things? So we have let's say that there is a inbuilt function called as math in C sharp. So if I say math, you can see there are, the moment I press dot, you can see that there are multiple attributes to explore. You can get maximum value, minimum value. Let's go for maximum first. Let's see 10, comma 20, 30, and then. So this will return a maximum and minimum value too. So if I just try to console.writeLine, if I try to get output of maximum value on these two, it will give me the maximum value is 30. So something similar we can try it for min, we can try it for pi, square root, and all other things. So you guys can explore this part as well. So do explore those things, and now we will move to the next thing in C sharp, that is strings. The first part of the tutorial, we gone through uh, all other things. So we will end our class today here, and we will in the next class we will learn about strings. We will learn about booleans. Once after we finish that, we will start with our first project to build a calculator. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining us.